The SRX heads to South Boston Speedway for the second race of the 2022 SRX season, and we see a lot of tempers flaring, a lot of side-by-side racing, and Tony Stewart picking up the victory. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. I just got done watching the SRX race from South Boston Speedway. We're going to talk about the race. So, let's start with heat number 1, and then we'll go to heat number 2. So, heat number 1, we had a little bit of incidents race. It was still pretty much straightforward. It really was races kind of dominated by Greg Biffle and Marco Andretti. It would actually be Greg Biffle who would win heat number 1. Not much really happened. No major incidents happened. So the heat 1 basically running would be Greg Biffle, Tony Stewart, Marco Andretti, Bobby Labonte, and Ryan Hunter-Reay in heat number 1. Then heat number 2 happened, and of course they basically inverted the field. We saw a little more intensity in the field. We're about halfway through heat number 2. We saw Julio Castroneves get into the back of Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy was not very happy after the races, after the heat races. We also Ernie Francis Jr. get into the back of Tony Stewart as well. But it would be Julio Castroneves winning heat number 2 for the second week in a row. Because Marco Andretti finished second, he would actually be starting on the pole for the main race. So, after the heat races, we saw a lot of tempers flaring. Tony Stewart was probably the angriest I've seen him in a very, very long time, calling out multiple drivers, basically grabbed Ernie Francis Jr. by the ear, basically said shit on TV. It was one of the wildest things we've seen. It was very, very chaotic, and Tony Stewart was not very happy. Also, Paul Tracy was very, very unhappy with Julio Castroneves and basically said that he uses brain, circus brain, who really knows. So, you kind of knew going into this, there were going to be a lot of tempers potentially flaring and a lot of fireworks in the race itself. So, let's now go through the main event of this race. So, at the start of this race, you had, I believe, on the inside, you had Marco Andretti leading the field from the inside and Tony Stewart on the outside. Tony Stewart didn't get the lead for a few laps, and Andretti led the first couple laps, and then Tony Stewart got the race lead. Eventually, Marco Andretti, about 6-7 laps later, decided, I'm going to go ahead and give the back bumper to Tony Stewart, and got into the back of him. And we saw both of them start getting into the back bumper. We saw basically Tony Stewart get into the back multiple times, but wasn't really crazy. And then we would see the race break caution, as we call it, the quintessential fun flag, because I don't gotta hate that fun flag. Basically, the fun flag would come out, and that'd be the first caution of this race. On the restart, you have Tony Stewart lead the field from the outside and Marco Andretti on the inside with Tony Stewart able to clear. The next caution race would come out a few laps later for Ryan Hunter-Reay, who got sideways in turn number 4 as he tried to collect his car after contact with Peyton Sellers. He unfortunately collected Paul Tracy, and Paul Tracy fell out of his race. Paul Tracy was not very happy. On the restart, Tony Stewart lead the field from the outside, and he cleared off turn number 2 and got ahead of Marco Andretti. Then Marco Andretti got to basically inside of Tony Stewart to retake the race lead and tuck right behind him and began using the back bumper. And then eventually, about 7 or 8 laps later, we basically saw Tony Stewart get into the left rear of Andretti, and Andretti got a little bit sideways. Then a few laps later, eventually, Tony Stewart drives into the rear of Marco Andretti as payback and basically shoves him up the track, and Marco falls back to third. Marco basically decides to make a really big bonsai move trying to get around Greg Biffle for second, but he's not able to do it, and he unfortunately ends up spinning out. Now, luckily, Andretti did not get a ton of damage, but he spun out, bringing out the caution in this race. And then went back racing with Tony Stewart leading the field from the outside and Greg Biffle on the inside, and Tony Stewart was able to clear. Then the next caution race would come out of lap 69 for Ryan Hunter-Reay, who looked to the inside of Michael Waltrip into turn 3. Michael Waltrip literally basically kind of had 2 blocks, and basically Ryan Hunter-Reay got into the back of him. Just a racing deal in my opinion, but it's definitely Ryan Hunter-Reay's fault. He gets in the outside wall really hard, and Michael Waltrip was not happy. They would both start getting into a shoving match. Michael Waltrip looked for Ryan Hunter-Reay. They both started getting into each other, and Waltrip fell out of this race, and he said that he was basically expecting tempers to really flare. Then he went back green flag racing with Tony Stewart leading the field over Greg Biffle and was eventually able to clear. Then Tony Stewart started pulling away just a little bit. But as the race started progressing, all of a sudden Greg Biffle was like 6-7 tenths back. He started really closing in on Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart said after the race was over, he said he was starting to lose some ground and he was backing it up trying to save his sub, and it really didn't work out. He didn't go as hard, and that's what started losing ground. Greg Biffle closes in about 2 or 3 tenths and starts to make a charge. But as we're coming to white flag, Tony Stewart starts pulling away, and he's able to hold off a hard-charging Greg Biffle, and he goes on to win the first race, his first race of 2022 in the SRX, and his 3rd career SRX victory. Tony Stewart had one of the best cars for sure in this race. His car was really fast, and a big redemption night definitely for Tony Stewart, considering Tony Stewart definitely was horrendous last week at the SRX race at 5 Flags. Finished the worst. He had the worst finish of his career in the SRX so far. Bounced back with an amazing win tonight. Congratulations, Tony Stewart, on picking up the SRX victory. Well-deserved win. So now let's go ahead and go through the results of this race and give you my score of tonight's race. So Tony Stewart picks up the victory. Gray Bill finished second. Really strong run from Gray Biffle. Gray Biffle had a pretty decent race last weekend at 5 Flags, but wasn't really a factor at the beginning, but gets a really strong second place finish. Good run from Gray Biffle tonight. Bobby Labonte finishes third. Bobby Labonte with a very solid run. Again, consistency is going to be key for the championship as well. Gets an awesome third place finish. Great run from Bobby Labonte. Ryan Newman finishes fourth. Ryan Newman was really kind of a factor in the beginning of the race. Kind of fell off a little bit as the race kind of progressed, but still gets a very solid top 5 finish. Julio Castroneves finishes fifth. Castroneves really was not a factor until the second heat of this race like it was last week, but he does get a really strong top 5 regardless. He finishes in fifth. Tony Kanaan finished sixth. Decent run for him. Ernie Francis Jr. kind of gets into drivers in this race, but kind of keeps his nose clean technically. He finishes in seventh. Mark Andretti bounced back to an 8th place finish. Ryan Hunter-Reay finishes in 9th. Peyton Sellers, who is the local hero, really was never a factor in tonight's race. He finishes 7th. Michael Waltrip finishes in 11th. And finishing last in 12th place is Paul Tracy. So now I'm going to talk about the overall race as a whole and give you my score of tonight's race. This race in this broadcast compared to last week was so much better. The race, honestly, I thought from beginning to end was way better as well. You had a lot of drivers getting really, really aggressive in this race. You had a lot of side-by-side racing as well, and it was a very, very fun race. You had a lot of tempers flaring as well, and the drivers getting into each other. You had guys beating and banging, guys running the back of bumpers of each other. It was overall a very, very fun race, and that's what the SRX was really intended, the Superstar racing experience was really intended. See the best guys go out and race and stuff. And yes, we definitely have seen tempers this year, but tempers last year. We saw a lot of tempers tonight, and this could be basically a really big showing, especially when we go to Stafford next week. We know the bumper is probably going to be used. So my overall score, though, of tonight's race, I am going to give tonight's race at South Boston. I'm going to give it tonight overall a 9 out of 10. A near perfect race for me. I do feel like there's some things may miss a little bit on the broadcast. Actually, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Race is really, really eventful, very, very chaotic, and I absolutely enjoyed tonight's SRX race from 5 Flags, 9.5 out of 10. So, anyway, that is going to be for the SRX race review from 5 Flags. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on pages. So let's get just over that. Comment with your thoughts on tonight's SRX race. What are your thoughts on tonight's SRX race at South Boston? Let me know below. Let me know your score in the comments of tonight's race. And congratulate Tony Stewart on picking up the victory. Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, if rain does not affect the race, we'll have a race view from the National Super Speedway for the NASCAR Cup Series. If not, more than likely, that'll be postponed to Monday. That'll kind of mess up the schedule. We're just going to have to see what happens through the rest of the week. But we've got a lot of content coming here in the next couple weeks. I think you're all going to enjoy what's coming. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content like SRX, F1, and IndyCar on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.